Welcome to the Wealth Matters podcast, where investors come together to better understand how to build passive cash flow and create generational wealth without all the confusing mumbo-jumbo. Here's your host and co-author of Amazon #1 bestseller, Alpesh Pamar.
Welcome to Wealth Matters podcast. I have with me my good friend and Facebook celebrity, podcasting celebrity, Mr. Adam A. Adams. How are you, Adam?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good, sir. Adam A. Adams is also known in the real estate community as AAA. He has educated thousands of investors through real estate conferences, radio and podcast interviews, his coaching program, his thriving meetup group. Adam hosts the Creative Real Estate podcast as well, which I personally listen, as well as I have attended his Raising Money Summit. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
No, I'm very excited to have you, and you can tell that. So tell us something interesting about yourself, which we don't know or which we cannot guess.
Wow, I love that question. And we could go in so many different ways. Most people don't know that I'm on the autism spectrum.
Oh.
So I have always been a little bit odd cat, a little bit different. I think a little outside the box. I was interested in things that not everybody else was interested in. And one funny thing that to me is, when people come and say jokes, I have to stare at them with a blank face for a little while, because I'm not sure if it's a joke or if it's serious, because traditionally I just take everything face value. So most people wouldn't know that I was on the autism spectrum. My oldest son also is on the autism spectrum as well, and so I guess we both have Asperger's, which there's pros and there's cons, and I would say the only real con is that we don't get jokes as fast as some other people, and the biggest pro would just be that when others don't see a way or a solution, our brains are kind of thinking backwards, and we can kind of see that where others might not. But other than that, I'm high functioning and I get along with people, and I am not too introverted. I guess deep down I am an introvert, but maybe that's what I should share.
I wouldn't have guessed that you are an introvert. See, I'm an extrovert and it comes out as that, right? But I wouldn't have guessed that you are an introvert.
Yeah, pretty shy myself, and I've just learned I have to kind of push past it if I want to grow.
That's interesting. So why did you choose real estate?
I didn't really choose real estate. It kind of chose me. My dad made me do it, is the real honest truth. So I was growing up, and I grew up in a family where we owned all sorts of types of real estate, self-storage units,
nice.
Apartments, small multifamily, larger multifamily, land, cabin lots. We did tax deeds. We had agricultural land to offset income taxes, a tree farm. So this is just like me growing up. My dad's a general contractor, and we would work on a lot of our rentals together. We own condos and things like that. And we'd like put up walls and take down walls. And my dad always told me that that's what I had to do. And so it was something that I initially resisted. I think every listener can understand this as well. When you're a teenager, when you're 13 years old, 16, 18 years old, and your dad tells you need to do something, you're probably going to do everything else first. And so I was trying to resist getting into real estate, but he ended up purchasing a piece of land for me, a cabin lot in particular. And now I owned a piece of real estate. Of course, his freaking accountant made me pay my dad for the thing anyway. So first I get it as a gift, then I have to pay for it. So now I'm truly invested in this piece of America. Anyway, I sold it. A couple years later, I wasn't even trying to sell it, but somebody found out that they were bringing in like electricity and plumbing to the cabins, and so the value was going way up. So before that happened, they tried to buy them for like a lower price, but I still made 8,333% return on my money
Wow.
after expenses, 12,000% before expenses.
That's good.
And that was kind of what made me personally buy into it. Like I owned it already. I grew up doing this stuff, working on our rentals, collecting rent when I was young. But at that age, when I was in college, it was the year 2007, where I finally read Rich Dad Poor Dad and said, I'm going all in on apartments, just like Robert did.
So that's amazing that you read the book in 2007. I drank the Kool-Aid in 2015.
Oh, nice.
So yes, all of us read that blue book, and then that, our mindset changes, right? But you came from the background, and I'm glad that your dad pushed you into real estate, right? And that's what I'm trying to teach my, the daughters right now, that they keep asking me, what do you do, Dad? What do you do? And I'm like, this is what I do. And they're like, I don't understand. So it's a great way to get your kids started, in the business, in real estate, etc. Just push them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. How old are your kids?
10 and 7. Actually, my youngest has turned 8 as of this morning. So that's why I'm even more excited.
Nice. And, I have got an 8 and a 12. So.
Oh, awesome. So my 10-year-old would turn 11 in a month. So pretty close. So
sure.
you know what I mean, right? So we did not discuss about this question, and I know you have been doing this since 2007. And one of my passion is to teach my kids and even other kids on how to get started, investing yourself, real estate, learn more about building a business, etc. So what do you do with your kids, which would get them started, right? Which would at least give them an idea what you do, etc.
Yeah, about 4 years ago, they helped me out with 3 of my fix and flips. So we've got like video of doing some demo and all that kind of stuff. So they've been a part of it. And as far as the rest of the business, they're not really involved. They're not really learning a lot right now. But what's interesting is they like to come to a lot of my events. So I host meetups, I host masterminds and larger like real estate conferences.
Yes.
And so
and I saw your dad last year. I saw your son last year in the real estate summit. So I remember that.
I let him know, it was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday last year.
Yes.
Thursday and Friday, he heard all about it, and he wanted to go. So on Saturday, I said, if you guys want to come, you can come. And he wanted to, and I said, do you want to come on stage? And he goes, no. And I said, what if I give you $5? Would you just say hi? And that's all you have to do. And he goes, okay, do it for 10. And I'll say hi. And as soon as I get him on that stage, you couldn't take the mic away from him.
That's crazy. And he learned the negotiation tactics from you, right? Not 5, it's 10.
Exactly.
Okay, that's great. So what was your first deal ever in multifamily side?
First deal ever managing, it was 2007.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up collecting rent and stuff like that, working on deals. So my family always owns them, but we'll just talk about me personally owning them. My first real estate deal was 2005. My first time that I managed for other people, I used to manage 3 different properties, 23 total doors for one person. And so that's kind of how I got into it in 2007. In 2008 was my very first that I owned without, my family. It was just me. I didn't have any help from dad or anything like that. So that was 2008, right around the time of the crash. It was in Utah and Orem, Utah.
Oh, I know
And
Orem, Provo,
okay,
and yes,
yeah.
Provo. Yeah, very nice area, beautiful.
So I think I was I must have been 25-ish, 20, maybe 26. And I did a house hack on a 3 unit. So I lived in 1 unit, rented out the other 2 units, and I even had some people living in my own unit. So I had like 1, 2, 3, 4 tenants, and myself. And so I was making usually 300 to 600. I would usually net 300 to 600 a month. But what ended up happening is in 2010 and 11, my residents started having a hard time paying rent. Like,
Right.
they weren't making as much money at their jobs. There was some aftermath with 2008. So by 2010, my business wasn't, I had a handyman business. It wasn't going as well anymore in 2010, and a lot of them couldn't pay. But that was my first deal, and I ended up losing that property.
Really?
I had a private lender, was my
Uh,
bank. My bank was a guy named Tom, and I called up Tom and I let him know I don't think I'm going to be able to pay my mortgage. And so he flew in from California, and we did a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So I signed over the property back to him. He got to keep all of the work that I did. I put a good $40,000 of work into a couple of the units and the roof and stuff like that. So he got to keep those, and I was able to walk away without owing money or having a foreclosure on my record. So
that's crazy. I was going to ask you, was that a great deal because it was 2008, or because it could have been a worse deal because there was 2009 and 10 as well.
yeah, it was a great deal for everything that I learned and what I learned about myself. It was a fantastic deal, and I'm so blessed to have it.
That's a
It
great
was
point.
embarrassing. It was embarrassing to have to sign it over to my lender. I'm glad that he ended up getting more than he bargained for. He got a
Right.
good he got a good cash flowing asset. Never was delinquent on a payment, and he got it in better shape than it started, and at a higher value than it started.
Right.
So
Yeah,
uh,
and that's a great point, right? So you took care of your lender as well as you learned so much from that deal that did not deter you from buying your next deal, right? And I keep telling people that all of my friends, my listeners, that your first deal does not have to be a blockbuster. Don't try to find the diamond in the rough every day. Just go do a deal and you learn so much. And that's how it happened with me. 2015, I lost money on my very first deal, first single family turnkey, all the money I had invested. But then even before I lost, I bought second, third, fourth, just to try to apply what I had learned, right? So that's the only way to go. Hey, so the topic I want to talk about, and we always talk about multifamily, but I want to see, are you doing multifamily right now, and why? Right, with
great.
the COVID and eviction moratorium, etc.
So we are doing multifamily. It's all we do. Um, with that, I should say that during COVID, it was March or April that we
Mm-hmm.
ended up exiting a contract and losing our earnest money and losing the acquisition fee that we were going to make. So it's a story that a lot of people seem interested in, because we ended up losing a little over $500,000 when we pulled out, and people always want to know, well, why didn't you just close? If you closed, you would have kept your earnest money. You wouldn't have just been wasted, and you would have made that acquisition fee. The earnest money was 113.5, and then we also had hard costs of somewhere around 50 or 60,000,
Okay.
and we with attorney fees and due
Right.
diligence
And
fees
the
and
due
everything else.
diligence, right?
Yeah,
Inspection, this,
yeah,
that, the
lender fees.
phase one, whatnot,
Yeah,
if you had done all that.
yeah, yeah, and then a $335 $5,000 acquisition fee that we walked away from as well. And people are dumbfounded. And for us, it goes back to what we were just talking about in 2008, 9, 10, and 11. I saw aftermath from the beginning of the correction. It didn't just change overnight. So what we did is we thought there's no way we're going to buy a property right now because it's uncertain. We don't want to have passive investor money in uncertain times, and we want to be able to understand the market. The truth is, I don't think anybody understands the market right now. Nope. There's some people that are praying, that are hoping, that are optimistic. And for us, it's not that we're pessimistic. It's not that I'm not positive that something bad's going to happen, but I'm not positive that something good's going to happen. So we decided somewhere around March or April of 2020 that we're just going to kind of relax on and take our foot off the gas for acquisitions. So we stopped underwriting deals, and we probably won't look until Q2 of 2021.
Okay.
At Q2 of 2021, we're calling it June-ish. We'll probably start underwriting deals again and looking at deals, unless we still don't understand and we are still nervous. Then we're just going to relax. What we are doing is we can't stop managing the deals we already have. So we own several properties that we own and operate. Most of them are syndicated. So we're GP on 4 different apartment communities that we just can't stop. We can't let our foot off the gas there.
Yes.
Because we've got a fiduciary responsibility to passive investors, and we're doing everything we can to watch those and manage them and increase their value and help out the residents during these times, and taking and not even thinking about shiny objects like new projects until these go well, and then we are willing to probably start purchasing again in a few months from now.
Hey, so tell us the story that why when you were already under contract, when did you get under contract? What all you finished, and what was the reason you backed out? Right? What was the reason you gave to the broker and the seller that you are backing out of that deal?
The reason on the document that we sent to back out of the deal said force majeure, an act of God.
That's one of the things you want to have in the contract.
so that's what we wrote on there. When did we get under contract? I could be wrong on some of these dates. We had this for a while, so I'm just going off my best memory. Around June of 2019 is probably pretty close to when we were signing the contract. Around August is when I believe we were starting to put earnest money down. Around October is when we were doing a lot of those hard costs, and right when our earnest money was going hard. And November was when they had their first fire. And January is when they had their second fire. And this increased the insurance costs by a huge amount. It went from $120,000 per year for our insurance, basically $10K a month-ish, to $220,000 per year, which is like
huge,
almost
double
$20,000 per month. So we were trying to make it work around January and February, and we were going through negotiations and trying to get this at a number that made sense. And then around March, the project started losing, the owner was mismanaging, and they started losing a little bit of income, and trying to think what else was going on. And then the economy in that city, the governor was having some issues with funding, and they were concerned if they had enough reserves to hold out for COVID if COVID lasted 1 or 2 years. And so they made a big announcement there. And then somewhere around, I can't remember if maybe it was April, but that same state gave away like 60% of its land to Native Americans. And so things were like compounding. It was these fees, and it was the prices going up. It was the value of the property going down. We were anticipating cap rate expansion, like basically a lower price per income to start happening. And so what we ended up doing is signing something saying, we're backing out of this contract, because like we just, there's too much unknowns, and we cited force majeure on the documents.
No, that makes sense. And I have, again, I don't want us to go through my story, but I had similar story as well, that we got into a contract here in California on a senior housing in October. We were supposed to close on March 15th. 4 days before, because it's a senior housing, the lender backed out. We couldn't close. We couldn't find the lender on the same terms. Finally, by the time we found the lender, and with the same terms, actually better terms and everything, it was July 15th. And that's when the lender, we were about to close and said, oh, the property is now losing money. You got to come up with another $1.5 million. And we had to back out of the deal. So same thing, we lost like $400,000. Yeah, it was crazy. And but it just made sense for the investors, right? That okay, it's better to lose money in the beginning than lose everything.
It's better for me to lose GP money, than for me to lose LP money.
Yeah, and yeah, it was a great point. And this is exactly what, when I was a passive investor, and I still invest passively, I have lost money with a lot of celebrity syndicators, like big names. They are still speaking, and I just cannot believe, and they keep losing money in their deals even right now, and they're still raising, right? So there are always those bad apples.
Wow.
So I have another question about, because you said you are still managing your property. So have you seen any impact with rent collection because of COVID?
Yes, we have, but not significantly.
Okay.
And the worst might still be yet to come. So in March, we were pretty average. We were pretty normal across the board. April, pretty normal. May, pretty normal. June, a couple properties were lower and a couple properties were crushing it. Mm-hmm. So yes, we've definitely seen things change, but across the board, we're still above 90% economic occupancy on, I think, every property. I didn't look this morning, obviously, but I think every property's over 90% economic occupancy, which is really, really good.
Yes.
And that's even on one of our smaller units. It's a 16 unit. So that property, I think, is 100% occupied right now. So we're doing pretty freaking well. We're happy. We are, I guess, we're preparing for the worst, and we're trying to do everything that we can to make it as strong as possible.
Yeah, let's see what happens after the election. That's what worries me the more than COVID right now.
I agree. Yeah.
And I hate politics, so I didn't want to bring it up, but what do you think of the eviction moratorium? And have you found any workaround?
I know some, but one of the people in our mastermind, I run a little inner circle, and one of them did find a workaround on somebody who was in one of their units, and they were having a hard time getting them out. They actually were able to get them out. Just a terrible tenant. Well, what I think about the moratorium, I guess in a way, it's fortunate for the individual who, is struggling, and I hope that there's a way to feed that to the apartment owners as well, since the apartment owners need to be able to maintain a business, and they need to be able to maintain the property, and having enough money to do all of the the roof and everything else that goes in.
Yep.
So all in all, I think it's beneficial. I think that it's probably a good thing that it was out there, and I hope that the people that put it in place are always thinking about the owners of the apartments as well, who have bills to pay.
Right. And even if they did not have mortgage, they are losing money, right? So I mentioned this, that, the landlords or the apartment owners have bills to pay, mortgage, etc., right? So someone said, but if there is no mortgage, still there are bills to pay, right? Still there are a lot of things to take care of. And they are also in a business, right? If nothing else, I think the government stimulus money should go for food and roof first before anywhere else, right? Not on my Netflix and all my, all my Starbucks coffee and whatnot, right?
There you go.
So let's talk about some of your deals. What was your best deal so far?
Best deal. I think it was that first, triplex that I owned. Best deal because it proved to me that I could purchase, and I learned a ton from it. It was a smaller one, and if I never did my first deal, then I would never do another deal. And I've been able to partner in over 1,400 doors, and it all started from that triplex. And it doesn't mean that for the listener they have to go with a triplex first. Right. You can. There's all sorts of ways you could do a single family or land, or you could do 10plex, or you could co-GP on a 300 unit. Just in my case, my first deal was the best deal because it proved something to me, and I think that's oftentimes what we need as human beings. Is as we were talking, Alpesh, we were talking about mountain biking and at the beginning before we started recording.
Right.
And it's like those jumps that I go off of, like I try to do some cool things and go off of a big drop and go over rocks and really, like, there's no way to get there unless I try a smaller jump and I can succeed or fail.
And you may get bruises from it, right? But those are needed.
So to me, my best deal is the one that got me into the motion of what it felt like to own real estate.
All right, awesome. And what was your worst deal, and what did you learn from it?
The worst deal, there's 3 that we didn't do. And one of them we lost a significant amount of money. This one, we lost the most of any other deal, $515,000, I think, when we add it together. But the worst one is the one that was more embarrassing than that. And what I mean by, I've had a podcast for I think 3.5 years, and I have a decent listenership on the podcast. A lot of people who listen, they will often reach out. They'll email me. Some of them even have they'll text me or Facebook message me as well. And we had this project that we were going to do a co-GP, and we had a few roles, and one of the roles was raising equity, and we were able to raise all the equity, I think, in one day. So wow. Our commitment of what we would do, we got it all in one day. And the you mentioned earlier that you lost money with some celebrities. I'm thinking about a few different celebrities that are just great people. I don't know if they're making money or losing money, but they're good people to the core. And one of them has a very famous podcast, and I was talking with this podcaster, and he or she put me in touch with somebody that they wanted me to, co-GP. So we did everything that we needed to do. We co-GP'd, and I thought because it was a friend of a friend that I really respected, and I looked up to in this business. They have one of the biggest portfolios of anyone in the country. And because it came through that person, him or her, I thought it's going to be great. And the problem was that this person that I got put in touch with had gone through securities fraud. They had a securities violation from years back when they created a Ponzi scheme and cheated people out of, I think, millions of dollars. And when I asked that person about this Ponzi type scheme, they said, quote, "It was a good run. It was a good run. We made a lot of money," and they laughed about it. And I wouldn't have thought to do my own due diligence on this person, but on my podcast, I always share, you have to do your full due diligence.
Yes. And
so I'm saying that, but I'm not practicing what I'm preaching in this case. I'm thinking it came from someone that I trusted, so I don't have to spend the time or money. But my passive investor, my biggest passive investor on that deal is a listener of the podcast. And he or she went in and did the research on every single GP in the GP. That's me.
That's
and
awesome.
All of my co-GPs. And then he found out that this person that I'm talking about didn't have their name on the GP. In fact, they had their name on an LLC that owned an LLC that owned an LLC, and they hid it. They hid it like a few layers behind.
Wow. Why would you do that?
They did that because the lender wasn't going to lend.
Right, for the fraud, because of the fraud.
Yeah, because it's called, I'm losing the term for it. It's like bad guy. I don't remember. The point is that the lender wasn't going to lend unless that he or she hid themselves many levels down.
Right.
And I was counting my chickens before the eggs hatched.
Of course.
I was excited for, I think we were going to pull in like a year's worth of income in acquisition fee.
Right. Oh.
And so I'm thinking, 6 figures coming in a couple of weeks, and I'm blinded by this. And the reason why that's the worst deal ever is because how embarrassed I was when it was my passive investor that had to tell me. And then all of a sudden I was already telling everybody that I was closing this deal.
Yes.
And I had to put my tail between my legs and tell people that I totally effed up. I completely did the wrong stuff. And I almost got passive investor money into huge trouble. And I could have lost my credibility for my whole life. I would have never been able to buy another deal. And I was just about this close. I believe we backed out the week that it was supposed to close.
No, that's
and
amazing.
I felt so bad. I felt so bad about that connection, that famous podcaster that put us in touch. It's just like it crushed me to be in that deal. We lost money. I felt like we lost credibility. All in all, I think our past investors were grateful that we at least acknowledged it. And made sure that we didn't go through with a deal like that. So,
thank you for sharing the story. And this shows extreme ownership, right? You owned the mistake, and you said, okay, I acknowledge it, and you understood as well and backed out, right, at the right time. And this is where I have interviewed Jeremy Roll as well, and he always talks about due diligence, right? Thorough due diligence. And that's what I didn't do 5 years ago when I started investing, or 6 years ago passively, right? But right now I run background check on everyone involved, right? Because it's for the sake of my passive investors as well. If I'm doing co-GP, I got to know who I'm dealing with, unless I know that person already pretty well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No, thank you for sharing the story. So let's take a quick break, and after the break, we'll go through my usual questions. Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. I am chatting with Triple A here. Welcome to Wealth Matters again. Triple A, are you ready for 5 rounds?
I sure hope so, sir.
Okay, let's go. Would you be changing any business or investment strategy after coronavirus?
Yes, we will definitely be changing part of our strategy, and that's going to be as far as the markets that we're investing in. And we don't know the answer to it yet, but I believe that some of the markets are going to increase and some are going to decrease and some are going to just stay, stagnant. And we want to reevaluate. So we bought CoStar, and our big plan, I think that costs us like $1,500 a month or something like this.
Oh yeah, it's expensive,
but,
like 30 grand a year or something.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the biggest thing is that we're not just going to say that the markets we used to like are automatically going to be working after COVID. So we're going to be spending a lot more time come, Q2, that's the second quarter of 2021, just to make sure we're in the right market, because we think that the market is one of the most critical pieces. It's the deal, the market, and the team. But if you have the wrong market, then you basically are flying an airplane with a headwind. And if that headwind is pushing you back, you're putting all that effort, but it's not going anywhere. And we want a tailwind. So we're going to be looking for markets that have a tailwind so that we can be a great team, we can find great properties, but the market can also propel us to that next place.
That's great. Favorite real estate or finance or any other related book?
Lately, I've been really thinking about the book called Compound Effect. I believe it was written by Darren Hardy.
That's a great book, man.
The reason I like it is because most of us, we like to think that we're going to change one thing one time, lose a bunch of weight, one thing one time, make $1 million, and then we can just quit. And it doesn't work like that. The people that are successful, they constantly work on their marriage with their spouse. They constantly work on their relationships with their kids. They constantly work on their mental clarity. They constantly work on their spirituality. They're constantly working on their health, and they're constantly working on their business to have a small thing that you can do over time that's going to help you get to that next level. It's a different way of thinking, and I believe that once you adopt that mentality, it'll allow you to become more successful without the yo-yo diet type stuff.
So thank you for summarizing it for us. So I combined the compound effect with the one thing and Eat That Frog, right? Those 3 books combined, they help. They give the right message, right? That yes, you want to tackle that one thing, but also you want to continue doing that with other things as well.
Yeah, I love it.
So any tool or website you recommend or you cannot live without? I know you are going to say Facebook.
Well, Facebook for me is very important, and something that I recommend and can't live without that is more of a tool is my Calendly. It's just a way for me. And if you get Calendly, you can have a free version and you just have one option. I just upgraded it and I basically have unlimited options. It helps me basically time block what days I'll podcast, what days I'll do coaching calls with my one-on-one students. It will block out the days that I, just meet in person with my passive investors. And so I already know all of that, and I just give the right calendar link to the right people. And my days are all like set up how I need them. And it stems from utilizing calendly.com. I wish I was some type of affiliate. I'm not, but I love using Calendly. And if I didn't have it, I would fail in this business. I would go crazy. I would miss too many meetings and just be so stressed out.
Yeah, and I use Calendly as well. It's awesome. Any advice for beginner investors?
Yeah, one major piece of advice is just understanding the process of how you should be going about being an investor. And for me, that process goes something like this. Step 1, you want to pick a market. Step 2, you want to pick a team. Step 3, you want to find the money. Step 4, you want to find the deal. And here's the interesting thing. Many other people are doing this completely out of order. They're going to the deal first, and then they're behind the 8 ball trying to get the money. Or they go for the deal first, and they're completely clueless about what kind of market they're in. They go for the deal first, and they don't have their team put together. And so if you're new and you want to be a successful investor, just take these 4 steps to heart. The first thing you do is select a market. Do all of your market research, look at everything everywhere, make sure you have a great market. Now you start to get a team in that market. You might need a securities attorney, you might need business partners, you might need employees or virtual assistants, you might need brokers, etc. But you start to get that team. Then you start raising money. You start letting passive investors know that you have an ability. You have deals that are going to come up, and if they'd like to be part of it, and you start getting pre-commitments. Then when you have the market, the deal, the team, the market, the team, the money, it's the first time ever, and part of the team is your property management company, by the way. Now is the first time ever that you start going for deals. Everyone does that completely backwards, and that's why you're failing. That's why you don't get real deals. You're wondering like, hey, I've been asking brokers for a long time to send me deals. None of them pan out. None of them pan out because you haven't done the first 3 steps yet.
Right.
So
that's a great advice. How do you give back?
I give back by anytime somebody asks me to come and be on their podcast, I give back by trying to make sure that I can put my time there. And while I'm there, I try to be completely focused and answer the questions and try to give tangible advice. Other ways, besides my conferences and what we do educational wise, I would say it's all around what we started this day off with. And you asked me something unique about me, and I mentioned that I have I'm on the autism spectrum. I have Asperger's, and so does my son. So I have become part of a board of a group called Dream Gap Foundation, and they help people with high functioning autism get jobs and move out of their parents' house faster. So that's another piece of how I give back.
Thank you for doing that. How can my listeners reach out to you?
I would say the number one best way is if they're looking for help to attract more capital. If they want to brand themselves, start a podcast, etc., the best thing that they can do is go to raisingmoneycoach.com and schedule an appointment with me. raisingmoneycoach.com.
That's great. Thank you for giving your valuable time for my listeners. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for listening to the Wealth Matters podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes so others can enjoy the show too. Have a great week and happy investing!